perpetuity for the
Right.
universe. All right, we're live. All right. So the joke I was thinking of, because anyone who's just tuning in now, you might be wondering, what are we talking about? We were just talking about hair dye, which has exactly nothing to do with what we do here, although it was intriguing nonetheless. And so Mindy and I were just talking about being blonde or not blonde. And so I thought of a blonde joke, if you guys want to hear it.
Yes, please.
You do. Okay. Okay. So what do you call a blonde that dyes her hair brown? Artificial
Intelligence.
You got it. You got it. All right.
What was
It was artificial intelligence.
I was going to say articulate.
All right. Articulate. An architect. You call her an architect. Okay.
There you go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our daily success call. Now that I've offended every blonde on the planet. John Lavenia here with you. I'm not blonde. I'm quite gray, but I did cut and color my hair, and it cost me $7.95 just for men in a box. You just do it, and then you wash it out, and you're done. See you in 30 days. And I cut it too. You know that, Mindy? I cut my own hair. All I got to do is I got the the buzzer thing, the clippers. Yeah, that's it. So we do 1 inch across the top, 1/2 inch on the sides. Take the 3/8 and clean it up a little bit. Done.
You do it yourself, or you have your wife do it?
No, I just do it. Just do it, right? I mean, look, come on, hey.
We all had to learn new skills. We all had to learn new skills during the pandemic. So,
right.
I learned how to cut boy hair, but my hair just grew.
Right. Well, I think boy hair. I mean, I used to have long hair. Some of you who've read my book, you see the picture of the author on the back. It's like, you guys ever seen that? Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second here.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Show it all.
I have a copy of my own book, believe it or not. You guys want to laugh? All right. There it is.
Wow.
There I am. Look at that. Look at that. Feast your eyes.
Oh, yeah, you look different.
Feast your eyes. That's 12 years ago.
All right, I have to say you are much more handsome now than then.
Well, that's because men age like a fine wine or cheese or something. Yes. Oh my goodness.
John.
Yes.
John, to get serious for a minute, can you tell us the names of the 5 books? I know I've read 3 of them, but I can't find my list to get the other 2.
Okay, so books for beginners. If you're new here, or if you need a refresher. And these are things you can read again and again because they're good, right? That's why I recommended them. Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. That will help you to get a daily method of operation, start developing some habits, easy to execute, easy to digest, right? So I recommend that one. Everybody start with that. And here's 4 more. Pick one of them. And I recommend that you read from a couple of books contemporaneously, because this way you can get multiple perspectives and see what you put to use now. All this stuff, if it just goes in one eye and out the other, then what's the use? All right. So we want to use this stuff. So one of the other books I recommend for new entrepreneurs is The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that is going to talk with you about 4 different, what he calls quadrants, 4 different approaches to, making money and surviving and supporting yourself and all that. Really interesting perspectives, especially if you've been in the employee paradigm or quadrant for years or decades or whatever before showing up here. So that's one of the other ones. Another one is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. T. Harv Eker, like this author here, myself, is very conversational. So I like that you don't get a brain hernia when you read his stuff. And yet he's studied a lot of stuff. So he likes to boil things down into actionable steps. He does get a little mystical, with a couple of the things. When you read the book, he actually gives you drills to do where you touch your heart, you touch your head. I have a millionaire mind. I'm like, okay, I do it or not. I don't care if you do that part, but see what parts of this you want to use. So that these things that ring true for you, you take them and you run with them. So that's 3 of the books. Another one is The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. One of the first things I had to learn how to do when I was becoming successful as an entrepreneur was reduce the amount of time that it takes to get stuff done. Most of us piss away time like we're immortal. So what is the enemy? Indecision. Indecision is the enemy. Okay,
now
you
it's
can read.
12:20 p.m.
Uh-oh, hearing some background noise there. Okay, so you can read lots of books on this. In fact, I got a book in here that is dying to come out on paper, just about decision making, because I mean, to know and not to act is not to know, right? So we got to make decisions. And so Mel Robbins will help you with that, again, in an easy to digest manner. And the fifth book that I recommend is one that I think we could all use a reading of. This is a guy who was a student of Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he boiled it down into a couple of things that he applied consistently, which caused him to transform from a convict, 13 years in prison, to successful entrepreneur, multi-million dollars, et cetera. That's Weldon Long, and the title of the book is The Power of Consistency. The Power of Consistency. So I think we'll take that one up right here today. Pat, thank you for introducing the topic. Pat, ladies and gentlemen. Yay. All right, so consistent at what? Consistent at what? Great question. Thank you for asking. So here's this guy. He's sitting in jail, in penitentiary, right? Multiple years, repeat offender, convict. And it wasn't his fault, you see. It's life, man. It's the other guy, it's the system, it's the government, it's not me, right? So never looking in the mirror to see who keeps showing up at the scene of the crime, literally, okay? And then he had an awakening. He got like, we could call this a spiritual awakening, where he confronted, oh, wow, it's me that shows up at the scene of the crime. What are these tools that I consistently use to keep being a screw up? How do I do that so consistently? And what he explained is that if you have a box, so everybody picture this, you've got a box, and in the box is a bunch of parts, let's say, okay? And you start taking parts out of the box and you build whatever the thing is that the parts are in the box that you could build with that. So here are the component parts of something, and this is a metaphor for life, okay? And he said, for example, if it's motorcycle parts, well, then what is the product that you're building out of the things that are in that box? Guess what? It's not going to be a cake. It's not going to be anything else except a motorcycle. That's what it's going to be, guaranteed. So here's the question. How did this stuff get in your box? These parts, these tools, these operating strategies that you use to survive and to deal with life, right? Where did you get go be a thief? Where did you get go, stick up people at gunpoint or whatever he was doing? Where'd you get that? Did you originate that, or did somebody put that in your box? How about when you were a kid? Was your mind open to all these influences? Yeah, of course, every kid is. So who filled your box with stuff? You didn't know any better. So we're not blaming you, but you've been using those parts, those components, those pieces, those strategies, which for whatever reason you bought into, that these help you survive in life. So let's keep using them, even if they're self-diminishing things, right? So being a criminal in his case was obviously not a workable strategy. So he started to look at the parts that are in the box and started to choose. Oh, we're going to throw this one out, right? Well, let's replace it with something, because there's no vacuums, right? There's no, except I guess a black hole, if there even is such a thing. I don't know. I'm not an astronomer, but there's something's got to be in the box. Well, let's be deliberate about that. And so in his case, he started reading, which Pat and everyone, I recommend you do. And in his case, he really turned on to like Stephen Covey. Like that was his guy. He started reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and finding ways to apply that even in prison to become like, here's the model citizen. And, he's learning, he's educating himself. One of the things that was very important to him was his relationship with his then young son, which was essentially a non-relationship, right? Imagine being a kid and your dad's a convict, and that's all you've ever known of this dad character who's out there somewhere, right? So he wanted to reconcile that. It was a major priority for him. And also he wanted to learn about, business and how to be a productive member of society. And imagine that, actually receive more money, earn more money faster than he could steal it. Well, that's a pretty good idea. earn more money faster than you could steal it. And so he started studying, and he got consistent with that. And there was one point where he actually saved one of the wardens, or the people who oversee the prisoners. He saved their life. He didn't have to, but who he became as a person who was consistently putting in the box and meditating on these principles. And he had lots of time to do this, right? He had 7 more years. Lots of time to sit there and be quiet and think, okay? But the person he became in that process was instinctively, I got to save that guy's life. So the transformation, while we might look and say, well, this takes a long time to go from, convict to, successful business owner, millionaire, whatever. Okay, you could say that, but the transformation itself was just a decision away. And it happened because he was willing, and for whatever grace, right? He was willing and able to confront, here are my errors. Here are the things in my box. Yes, some of them I put there. Some of them I just allowed to be there. Some of them I don't even know what's in there. Let's take a look. Why do I keep doing that? Why do I keep reacting this way? Why do I keep blaming everybody? Where did I get that deal? So willingness to look at what you're consistently doing is a major step towards being able to have a choice over it, to be cause over it, rather than just be the effect of whatever the habits are. Because you'll have habits. Remember, there's no vacuum. So the way to, let's see, you've got an unresourceful habit. Okay, well, what do you do about that? There's no vacuums. Well, you replace it with a resourceful one. So something's got to be in the box. And there's a in everyone's case here, there is a default future based on whatever habits you've consistently, knowingly or not, been living in your life, right? You will continue to get pretty much what you've gotten up to this point. Or, right, there's the chosen future, right, where your more ideal self shows up, again, deliberately and consciously, and you start putting in different habits. All right. So between Miracle Morning, which will give you some specific things to do, and Power of Consistency, you could show up a year from now and we won't even recognize you. In a good way. In a good way. I mean, physically, I'll recognize you unless, Mindy goes pink haired or something. I might not know who she is, but right now she's this light brunette. Right. That's what she identifies as. Okay, good. So, but in actual, internally, we won't recognize you. It doesn't have to take a long time. Now, that's not saying that you're broken, okay? Because people with low self-esteem and, I'll never amount to anything, and what's the use anyway, right? People like that don't show up here. So you're all, of high esteem, just showing up here. So don't think for a moment I'm saying that, you're so broken and we need to not recognize you anymore. No. No, you're well on the path, or you wouldn't be here, right? And this is something that I had to, and I don't know how many of you relate to this, but this was the trip that I was on 30 something years ago when I first started engaging in personal development, because my life wasn't working, okay? And yet I started to engage in personal development. I started to read books. I started to show up at seminars and places where I could hear people speak and people whose lives were working. And I had this very low self-esteem. And then there was a mentor that showed up in my life and who offered me correction. Mentors do that, right? They've walked the path, and they could show you what the path looks like. And the correction they offered me was what I just offered you, is that people with low self-esteem don't show up in these, seminars and read the books and everything. So stop talking down about yourself, right? Hold your head up. You're doing fine. Okay. Now, after years or decades of self-deprecation, it's easy to just keep going unknowingly without even thinking about it. Keep going down that road. Keep belittling yourself. Keep discounting your little wins. But I'm here to tell you, we need to celebrate those little wins. And so just the fact that Pat asked, hey, what were those books? Well, what does that mean to me? Why would she ask a question like that? Because she's interested. and going somewhere, right, in life, reaching higher, better, stronger, faster. And it's not a matter of age. So keep that in mind. I know we've got a few mature people here with us. Do we have any youths on the call today? Youth being, less than 18 years old? I don't think so. I know we do have a couple of like mother-daughter teams here that are, doing the business, right, as an entity. That's cool. That's really, really cool. My goodness. I wish I had an entrepreneurial parent when I was growing up. Actually, you can read about that in this book if you're interested. But yeah, the majority of people, I think, here right now are, age of majority, perhaps times 2 or 3. Okay, fantastic. So you've got the ability to reason with these ideas that we talk about here and that are talked about in the books, and that from a logistical or operational standpoint, to here's Rachel and here's Adam and here's the people who teach you more of like the how-to stuff, the doingness of the the business activities. That's cool. So you can work with that too. But as I've said many times, and if you're new here, you'll hear me say it many more. More important than what you do is who's doing it. Who's doing it? Here are the methods. And I suppose if we had like a really advanced monkey or something, we could teach the monkey to do the methods. Okay. But that's not the whole story. Methods aren't the whole story. No. In fact, if you ask me, that's secondary. That's secondary, because you could be successful at anything. Here's, I mentioned Weldon Long, Power of Consistency. What did he become successful at? Does anybody know who read the book? Do you know what business he got into? It wasn't coffee mugs, by the way. It was HVAC, air conditioning, heating. Yeah, he started. There you go. Rachel got it. There you go. Very, very different methods. Still worked, because who's doing it? Who's doing it? Someone who's consistently applying principles into their life. You see, principles trump all the secondary and tertiary stuff. Principles you can build on rock now. So when you've got this, well, what do you want to do, right? But when you don't have this, well, you don't even have a shot. You don't even have a shot. I mean, if you don't hold yourself in high esteem, well, why should anybody else? Why should I buy your stuff, right? And this isn't something you necessarily communicate like on Etsy or something where you're saying, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I am an esteemed person. Just in case you were vague on that, let me make you unvague, and you should buy my stuff now. Here's the stuff. That's not the sales pitch, okay? But it's communicated nonetheless, because think about who's originating that communication. Who's originating the communication? Oh, you are. Okay, great. Well, do you know how to communicate in a way that will compel your ideal target audience to want to exchange with you for that product, that benefit that could be theirs if they just participated, right? They've got a credit card, you've got a t-shirt. Let's go ahead and, the price is right? So it may sound too subtle, but I will tell you that different people engaged in the same actions can have different results. And it's not by chance or luck. It's not by chance or luck. It's by who's doing it. So I will tell you, as I think the late Jim Rohn said, work twice as hard on you as you do on your business. If all you did was read the books I recommended and show up here and get into these talks a couple times a week, or every day if you're like really into it, I obviously am. And but if that's all you did, then who you become in the process is spectacular. And I will tell you, whether it's via these methods, which are known and provable, and we've got proof of concept here, right? People buy lots of stuff online. This is not an experiment, okay? So whether it's by these methods, or here's other methods that you didn't even suspect. It could even be, listen to this, it could even be the thing that you were looking to get out of. I've seen this so many times where somebody signs up for the program, the course, the, whatever the training is, to learn these methods, which they don't know anything about, but it's intriguing. So here's a few $1,000s, teach me those methods, because I don't like this. This isn't working for me. the job, the other business, the whatever it is. Okay. And so they start learning these methods, but simultaneously they start getting consistent with personal development principles and putting those to use in their life. And while their initial intent was to build this takes off. Suddenly they're in the flow. It's like boom, 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 money, money, money. And they're like, what? I'm looking to get out of this. Who's showing up? Oh, the new improved you. Okay, well, now you're in the flow with this. So maybe it wasn't the externals, the methods, the circumstances. Maybe that wasn't the main problem. Who was showing up? Because anything will work. Coffee cups, t-shirts. I do very different forms of e-commerce, right? I make a lot of money, right? And my branding and marketing agency and my consulting work, and I run a mastermind group, and I'm obviously an author. Okay, it all works to whatever degree I show up. Hence the title of my book, Integrity is Everything, because to talk about this stuff is cool, and we can sound lofty and intellectual or whatever, but to put it to actual use, to whatever degree I've done that, it bears fruit, right? That's called integrity. And I'm far from perfect. I'm also not a beginner. So I guess I'm a qualified teacher of these principles. So anyway, thank you, Pat. All you had to do was ask one question. You gave me our topic for today. There you go. See how simple that was? Why don't you come out here, Pat? You have a comment, and then, of course, we're going to hear from Scott. Pat. Hello, Pat. Pat.
Yeah.
Click.
Okay. Got my mic on now. You're talking about consistency and learning from within. I taught for over 30 years, and I taught multiple types of classes and students. My last job was teaching in a boarding school for students that were the state put them there. Okay, they were emotionally disturbed. I had 3 students that were murderers. I had thieves. I had, everything. But all the years I taught, from my very first classroom, I only had 2 rules in my class. Do your own work. Let everyone else do theirs. Now, when they had graduation, they let every student talk for 2 or 3 minutes about what he had learned. And this one boy started and he said, well, I want to thank Mrs. Locke. That was my name then. She taught me everything I need to know. And then he went on to name 3 or 4 teachers. I taught him math, taught him English, taught him this. And the audience started to laugh, and he looked confused until somebody called out, what did Mrs. Locke teach you? And he said, she taught me that chairs aren't for throwing, that pencils aren't for throwing, that desks are to sit at. And she taught me to do my own work and let other people do theirs. So when he learned that and was able to apply it, then he was able to learn everything else. And that's most of what I did in my classrooms, special education, is I wanted to teach them self-discipline. My very first class was what they called educable retarded. And a lot of people said they can't learn anything. But just to give you an idea of what they expected, my arts and crafts budget was 4 times what my textbook budget was. I, explained to them several times the difference between discipline that somebody else imposes on them and the discipline that came from within them. And it turned out at some point I sprained my ankle so badly that I had to use canes to walk. Our school was a full city block. And they had to go to music, which was walking down one long hallway, down another hallway, and up the stairs. I couldn't do it. They wanted to go to music. And I said, okay, you can go to music. I said, but you've got to be self-disciplined. No talking, no fooling around in line. Can you do it? They will say yes. I said, if you get tempted, pretend I'm at the back of the line. They walked so quietly that a teacher who had borrowed books from me and knew I'd be coming for music was standing waiting in his room, and he heard the students pass, and he came out, picked me the book, and I wasn't there. And he came back to me, he brought me the book, and he said, I couldn't believe the way they walked. They were so good. I said, do you know when they're on the way back? Tell them. You know? Now, if those children could learn to do it, for the rest of my career, I said, if they could do it, anybody can do it if they want to.
Mhm.
If they want. And the same
Thank
thing
you,
with
Pat.
us. If we want to, we can learn it.
Thank you, Pat. Great example. And what are we but kids, you know, who've aged a couple of years and wear business suits? Thank you. It's the same truth, right? Good times. Pat, ladies and gentlemen, awesome stuff. Hey, Scott. why don't
Good
you
morning,
come out
John.
here
Morning,
and,
everyone.
give us a profundity here.
Oh, yeah. I think what was interesting for me, as you mentioned that the gentleman you were referring to who was in the prison, his response in protecting the guard, the warden, was instinctive. He said, I think you mentioned something in the context he didn't think about, he just did it. It was instinctive because of what he'd taught himself and learnt and so forth. And I think that's
the guard would have been perceived as an enemy prior. Let him die.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that the term instinctive is very, very telling, because it suggests that this is not just something that happens on a conscious level. It's almost like a reflex, almost like the sort of response you get when you put your hand in a flame. It's not something you even think about anymore. And if you carry the analogy further, it's not something that comes from belief. It's not something that comes from knowing things. It's not even something that comes from being the person you are. It's more what you are. You talk about something that has become hardwired physically into the brain. It's more than just a conceptual reality. It is actually hardwired into the brain as part of the body, so that you don't even think about it anymore. And that's a sort of instinctive knowledge that you're talking about that seems to be manifested in this situation with the guard. And I think that's a sort of level of ingrained positivity and mindset change that we need to look at, so that we don't have to think about these things anymore. They just become the way we respond instinctively without thinking. And once you do that, you have a foundation which puts you way above where you were before. And then you can actually build on that, because that's a building block you don't have to worry about anymore. It's a new physical hardwired, it's literally a neural hardwiring in the brain, which is the foundation of other changes. When you have other changes then that are similarly linked and hardwired into the brain, then they become a new foundation, a new step above where you were before. And I've noticed this too with a lot of people who are successful in acquiring specialized knowledge. Their understanding of the whole framework, the big picture, is instinctive. It becomes instinctive. And that's why when they try and teach to others, sometimes they don't understand. New people, they don't get the big picture. They don't get the big building blocks, the overall conceptual reality that they're talking about. Because they're so concerned with the specifics. And that's important, because the big building blocks, the big obvious things to them, have become instinctive. They don't think about them. They don't even see them anymore, because they've got a new foundation. They're working at a much, much higher level.
Right.
So it's very interesting. And that's why also I've heard it said that if you go to a professional for advice, for example, an accountant, lawyer, whatever it happens to be, you're paying an arm and a leg for that advice. And a lot of them get very annoyed because a lot of their time is wasted teaching people basic concepts about the law or about the court system or about how money works, whatever. They waste their time. But these principles of how money works, how the law works, how courts work, these are instinctive foundational things for them. That's why they don't want to waste their time exploring these ideas. They want to talk about what they're talking about at that high level. And that's why they can get frustrated with people who don't educate themselves to the point where they can talk at that level. And they'll take the money, fine, but they want to work at that high level.
Well, some do, and I don't know if saying that they're frustrated is fair. In some cases, they ostensibly are, but there was a sign. I remember this sign that was hanging in an auto shop because you guys know I used to sell tools, right? In fact, I used to be a diesel engineer, but there was a sign that said labor rate, $75 an hour. If you watch, $100 an hour. If you help, $200 an hour. Right. Right. Does that make sense? So you've got the ability to operate at a higher level if you've been consistent, which is our topic for today, is being consistent, I suppose. Which means what? You could save me a bunch of time. Scott, I'm going to come to you and ask for your advice on this thing which you're expert at. Okay. And I know you've got experience in the live theater, right? That's your world, right? So if you give me a command, right, then I'll just follow the command. Now I'd like to know why. Okay. I don't have to know why in this exact moment. If we're on a time schedule, just do what he said. That's fine. Okay. But ultimately, I want to know why. Right. And so a good teacher is going to also explain, and here's the mechanics of it. Here's what happens if we don't do it. Then here's the failure that comes later. Right. So I could see further down the road that you newbies. Right. So let me enlighten you. And here's why we do it that way. I remember I was on the range. Some of you know I do shooting. Right. I know a lot about guns, and I was talking to this master. Right. And we were talking about the specific minutia of the trigger press and stuff like that for speed versus accuracy. And I said, well, what do you do? Like when you put all this together? He's like, well, I don't even think about any of this anymore. Yeah. That's where the hole's going to be. And then that's where the hole shows up. And I don't think about any of it. Right. So he had to get down to the level of, the student to explain, here's actually what's happening behind the scenes in milliseconds. So anyway, Scott, thank you. It's always a treat to hear from you. You know who else it's always a treat to hear from? Can you guess? Can anybody guess? Shaquille. That's right. That's who we're going to hear from next.
Hey, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. It's also great to hear from you too, John. From tuning into the calls and stuff, I really feel like you're becoming like a friend of mine. You're a cool guy. But anyway, since we're talking about consistency and stuff like that, the book you talked about, The Power of Consistency by Weldon Long, his what's it called? An analogy of the box with like a particular kind of junk in it. That really reminded me of something else that Jim Rohn had talked about too, which you brought him up. I love him. Jim Rohn is awesome. But he was talking about the analogy of sowing a particular kind of seed, which I'm sure that we all have heard before, that if you sow poppies, then you're going to get poppies. If you sow tomatoes, you're going to get that. And so it's like it's a similar kind of concept that if you are having particular thoughts up here, which are like your seeds, then say, if there's a person that you are disagreeing with, and your thought is to, engage in an argument, then you're going to get a particular outcome, which is going to be having to be in that argument and feel all those, feelings. But yeah, with the consistency thing, all of this reminded me of a lot of stuff, and just been reading a lot. But it also reminded me of in T. Harv Eker's book, the secrets of the millionaire mind. He talks about a blueprint which people will have on their finances and money. And so, yeah, it all just works out to your habits, that if you grow up experiencing, like, you always have like your like money, it burns a hole in your pocket, and your parents were like that too, then it's likely that you will continue to get rid of all of the cash flow that you get, just instinctually, unfortunately, but it can be retrained. And yeah, this whole concept is just really cool to talk about. So yeah, man, I think I'm done.
Shaquille, thank you. It's good to get to know you here as well. You know, there's people that I've worked with for 2 decades over the internet who, you know, we may have never even met in person, but we made a lot of money together and we know each other like, you know, brothers and sisters. So welcome to the crew, Shaquille. Glad you're here, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking for a little bit. Before we wrap up, I want to wish a very happy birthday to Lynn Perry, all the way from Western Australia, where it's, my goodness, what time is it in Perth right now? It's coming up on 3 a.m. So you have a great day, Lynn. Awesome stuff. And anybody else whose birthday, I don't know if there's anybody else here in the group, but happy birthday to you. So Lynn just happened to mention it before we went live. Anyway, love you guys. We'll be back here tomorrow, I believe, with Karen, who should be back in the saddle. In the meantime, make it a great day. You totally deserve it. We'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.
John, before we go,
Yeah.
I'm a newbie. I'm Elise.
Hey,
nice
Elise.
to meet everybody. I was kind of like missing stuff and on 2 different formats and didn't know what was going on, so I'm here. I like to know, I like to screenshot your book. You keep putting it up, putting it down. Let me screenshot your book.
Are you ready? Bam,
Yeah.
There it is. All right, done. That's it. There it is. There it is.
Got it.
Great.
Nice to meet
Yeah.
everybody, and thanks for all the inspiration, and I'm on my way.
All right, my friend. Thank you. Glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank
Elise.
you, John.
You're welcome. We'll see you soon.